First order of business is roll call. All are present with the exception of Alderman Vitale and Alderman Turner, who are both excused. First order of business is approval of the minutes of August 28th.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any changes? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Next, we have discussion regarding penalties, future enforcement, and communication activities related to illegal fireworks. I think all of us on the council have gotten complaints over the years, and they've gotten worse in the last couple of years. It seems like there's been a proliferation of businesses selling fireworks around the state, and so more people are buying them, and I think it's time that we start educating our people regarding what the rules and regulations are for fireworks and that they're not allowed in the city. And I know some of the older people have asked that this be put on the agenda. Alderman Stefanski, do you have any comments or questions, or Alderman?
I've been getting calls constantly during, like, the whole week before 4th of July, week after 4th of July, constant with fireworks. And I mean, even in my neighborhood, they're like a block away. And
I have them all over my neighborhood
they just
too.
never seem to stop.
I know.
And I think that what we need to do is we need to increase the fines, and they need to be given out every time the police are able to catch them. Like, make it hurt, because they're affecting people who have PTSD. They're affecting people's pets,
Yeah,
and it's unacceptable. And it's like they don't care. And so if they don't care, then we're going to start penalizing them for it. That's my thought.
Mr. President?
Alderwoman Grisham.
District 3 has had some issues as well.
Let it be noted that Alderman Turner and Vitale are now present.
What, did I carpool?
My car broke down, sorry.
Oh, no. To bring the alderman up to speed, we're talking about the firework issue in the city. Personally, District 3 has had some issues as well, and I think we can blanket it for every district. I think the bigger problem, and the thing that ties our hands more as a council, and I really don't like using those words that we tie our hands. I think we've given our due diligence of what we can do based on law by placing ordinances within our city, such as they're not allowed to be, thrown off. We're not allowing to be sold, but that doesn't mean you can't go east of 43rd, west of 124, and go to your local Walmart or otherwise and obtain these fireworks. So what do we do further as a council? I don't know, to be honest with you. You can increase the fine, but then we look at the enforcement issue. What I think is, as time has gone on, people have gotten more blatant with it, and I think that we have to come up with a solid plan as to how to approach enforcement on it. Increasing the fine is great if you're able to give out the tickets. So I really think President Lysak has, an idea on education, but we have a level of lawlessness, and people who look at this as such a patriotic thing, and I worry more about the risk of safety and people harming themselves. And even if it's one out of all of them that are doing it, it's one too many. So the changes that I think really do need to occur are at state level, and what do we do as a local level government? So I can encourage residents when they call to call their state reps, to lobby, do what they need to do. I don't know that it's something that we as a council take up at a state level, but that's really my 2 cents.
I think there's a lot of confusion with residents because of the fact that you can buy them all over the state. They're advertised. You go down any major highway in the state and you see the signs, fireworks for sale. Everybody thinks it's legal now, or has that impression. So staff has come up with what I think is a pretty good communication plan, a draft plan to start emphasizing and letting our residents know that these are illegal, that we do enforce the ordinances, and yes, I emphasize with the police department, because you can't be all over the place on 4th of July. I mean, I know what it's like in my neighborhood, and there are probably 10 different places in my neighborhood that are setting them off. And if it's my little neighborhood, I'm sure it's all over everybody else's. So you can't be every place at once. But I think it's important that we start to tell people what the fines are, that they will be enforced, that if they're caught, there's going to be action taken, and we're not just going to look the other way. So,
Mr. President?
Alderwoman Keene.
In order to write the citation, do you have to catch them with the match and the fuse and lighting it off? Is it if they're going off in a driveway and you're the homeowner and you own the driveway while they're in the middle of being ignited? What justifies being able to issue the citation?
We would give the citation to people that we see lighting off fireworks, or we have a third-party witness that says they'll come to court. Now, it's a complicated issue, and West Dallas is really not much different than any other community in this state. The amount of fireworks is astonishing. The enforcement is next to nothing. We tell our officers to enforce it when it's repeated or egregious. So last year during the fireworks season, I believe we issued one citation when the officer saw someone shooting a firework at another human being. That would be egregious, so that gets to the safety issues that you spoke about. But fireworks are in every neighborhood, in every city, town, and village in this state. If we respond to complaints we get from citizens, what we are doing is merely responding because Bill is upset, where in the next neighborhood, Mary is fine with it and Mary doesn't call. So it's the same conduct, people lighting off fireworks, and in one neighborhood, they're gonna get a ticket because someone's upset, and in another neighborhood, no one's ever gonna call, so they're not gonna get a ticket. So you've got a disparity issue. I've checked with other chiefs. We're very consistent in our city with the low level of enforcement. Not going to be a much different experience in Greenfield, Hales Corners, Greendale, any suburban community that we want to talk about.
Chief, have you had a chance to review
I did, yep. I have those.
what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have. Education is, I think, where we need to be. There is a disconnect between what the state, how can the state allow you to sell something that in most communities
You
you
can't
can't?
use.
So there is
I
a,
know.
an inherent disconnect in the law. So perhaps some sort of communication to the state elected officials. We certainly in the police department can do a better job. Every year, we communicate with the officers what our expectations are going in. We were not a perfect 100% this year. There certainly were egregious situations that we could have and probably should have cited that we didn't. We always work on those, but you're not going to see a lot of tickets written.
Mr. President, just so you know,
Alderman Turner.
on my area, down 43rd Street, I went and checked with the village president over at West Milwaukee. What do they do there? And for the most part, it's pretty much nothing. Even though they do tell the people, those pop-up tents that they can't sell, they have to have ID to show that they live in the city, in cities other than around here or whatever. I talked to someone who used to work in one of those places, and they said, we don't do anything about that. We don't watch that. Never did. And so I don't know, other than, like you said, in the enforcement, but, enforcing those places seemed like a big thing as well. And I talked to, I forgot the guy's name there about it, and he said, we have checked, but I don't believe they do. And like you said, if you're gonna sell it 2 blocks away from my district, what's the difference? They're gonna play it. They're gonna do it.
Yeah, and I guarantee you, if we started citing people, and we certainly can do that. If you ask people, do you know this was illegal before we're citing them? Over 50% of them are gonna go, no, if it's illegal,
Yeah.
how can I?
Right, I bought it.
Exactly. You can
So
buy
there's
it.
a disconnect.
Yeah, definitely is.
Mr. President.
Alderman Stefanski.
Can people with, can you give people citations with doorbells, like Ring doorbells, cameras? Can you do that by people send that to you?
So video, and Kale can support me on this or disagree with me. Video can be challenging in court. For video to get introduced as evidence in court, you have to have someone verify the video. So I used to be a drug guy for a living.
Wait, you got
For your
drug enforcement.
Everyone has a pass.
We're all ready.
So video is a huge part of that game, video and or audio tapes. So for me to use an audio tape or a videotape in court, I would have to testify, hi, I'm a detective, I was with the informant when this was recorded, I listened to it live, and I can verify that the tape I'm about to play for you is an accurate presentation of what occurred on that day, date, and time. So video, we do, we're certainly open in the reckless driving campaign to use video, but you need someone to come to court and verify, yep, this is accurate video, that's the day, date, and time, it's accurate, and the person depicted on it is Bill, and here's how I know it's Bill. So you can do it with video. At the end of the day, it probably is not worth the investigative effort, because for every one ticket you might be able to write based on video, you could write 20 just driving around and seeing people.
But now if we educate people up until the 4th of July, and we hit every house in West Dallas, nobody can say, I didn't know anymore. And then you can
yes, so-
justify giving them.
Yeah, they would have a less of an opportunity to say that, but, I know that the city evaluates emails that we send city employees. The percentage of emails that are open. Just because you send something doesn't mean it's
Right.
opened. If it's opened, it doesn't,
Unless it's
I mean, it's
certified, you can't prove that they've seen
understood.
it.
Yep.
Right.
So,
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Vitelli.
yeah, for the last couple of years, I've been have really nice stopped calling me, but one gentleman who lives in my district,
Sure we all
I
know
got
that.
it.
Yep, he's called me too.
He's called
Right.
me too.
it's not you.
No, I got him now. Though.
But anyway, the gentleman was been a pain in the butt, really until a couple of months ago. Now he ceased to come, So he tried to promote to have fireworks to our local city parks, and I
They
don't
wanted a
think it's
permit.
going to happen. I don't think it's something that's logical. There's too many houses, the surrounding, I don't think it's going to work. Also, my neighbor next door he had a fireworks, and I don't like it. He had one night he was shooting up firecrackers flying, and he always kept doing that. Well, I said, call the police. As simple as that. It says, whether they will give you an issue a citation or not, they might. If you like the chief says, if you get somebody that says the third party or second, that you did it, so maybe you could get cited. So this man actually, he's been involved now with the state is not going to do anything. He says, I'm going to go to the state fair. I said, the state fair, do whatever you want. They're not even going to talk to you, which they did.
He did call this. He did do that.
Well, he went there. I don't know what.
And he
did
did,
get
call,
on
he
me.
did talk to someone from the state.
Yeah, they brush him off, I know they did. So the question is, to promote, this plan, maybe a good idea to do something about it. But then again, it's just like the guns, or just like fireworks. They sell them in our parking lot, anywhere you go, they got tents and they sell firecrackers. So the state is not stopping it, they promote. Gun, the same thing too. In many places they sell guns under the table, but that's besides the point. But that's what happened. You don't have laws that really work for the welfare of any city, really. We're talking about on a state level just as well, because we can't do much about it.
No, we can't do anything here, Alderman Vitelli, other than we've got our ordinance, we can enforce our ordinance, but everybody can see why there is a proliferation of fireworks today. Apparently I know there's got to be big money in selling fireworks. These people come around before we had the ordinances, they'd be set up on our busy streets, Highway 100 with tents and that. They pay the property owners, a few $100s or whatever, and they could set up their tent and sell fireworks for a month. Now they can do it all over the state and it's legal. So the fact that the state doesn't change means that they're paying a lot of money in lobbying fees. There's no question about that. And that's why the state reps are not going to change the law. Simple as that. So I think the best thing that we can do is, if the committee agrees, go forward with this communication plan. I give staff a lot of credit for coming up with this. And if anyone has any other ideas relative to what we can be doing, I think we'd all be interested in hearing it. Sure. Anything else to come on this?
I would just like to see more enforcement on it. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, and Chief, I understand totally what you're saying, because although I hear fireworks all over my neighborhood, I haven't gotten one complaint about fireworks from my immediate neighborhood. Get them from other neighborhoods, but right around my house, nobody seems, they don't care. It's one night and, they put up with it for a night.
And we do respond to complaints, and we do warn people if we have to come back, we're gonna give you a ticket, but most people heed that warning and stop.
Till tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there's a new batch of officers on it.
Mr.
They know the game.
President,
Yeah.
I just have one thing to circle back to, and it was Alderman Stefanski who mentioned, increase the fine. I don't think it would hurt to increase the fine. My question to Kale would be, are we at maximum?
I don't even know what the fine is right now.
Exactly, I think it's $436, or something to that effect. Thank you.
What is the
And I
fine?
think we're
I
doing,
don't know.
That's what he's looking.
Kale's
Yeah.
looking it up now.
Kale's looking to find out.
I see. Anyway, I have to say that it isn't a problem in my neighborhood. I hear them in the distance, but in my immediate neighborhood, I have to say there's no problem with it. It's not just on July 4th. Sometimes they do it for celebrations of one kind or another. But it takes place not just on July 4th, a celebration, I have to say that. And I perceive no problem in my particular neighborhood. Actually, I commend the alderman for probably bringing it up and have a discussion and a plan in place. However, I don't know if anyone really will listen.
The thing about it though, if you have that plan in place, is it gonna shut them off completely? No. If you get 10%, I'd be happy with 10%, to tell you the truth. And if you get 20, I'd be ecstatic,
$1,000 is the maximum for state law.
okay.
And where are
I
we
guess,
at?
I guess that's what I would look at changing, if anything, because then I think we've done everything within our power as a council, and add in the communications as well.
I would then, I don't know if someone lighting off fireworks that moved into West Dallas that doesn't know that fireworks aren't illegal because they just bought it 5 minutes away and have a party, that we slap them with a $1,000 fine.
Well, it's up to the judge.
Right,
You can make that a part of the media campaign.
Yeah.
right.
That's more so what I was speaking of. And-
Even $400 is a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, no, I think it's upwards towards 400, 436, something like that. And Chief Mitchell, would that be something that it would have to be like egregious versus what older keen set, okay? We've got,
Yeah.
a sparkler, which is technically illegal.
Yeah, we would-
Versus we're putting on a show.
We would still probably warn a lot of the people and stick to egregious conduct. But I guarantee you, police officers, while I can't prove it, probably encountered more than one egregious situation.
Okay.
Like the example in the park, we counseled people. We did not agree with their approach to this massive fireworks show and their statements that they couldn't figure out who did it. I guarantee you, if I wanted to figure out who was doing it, I would have figured it out in 45 seconds. So, yeah, we're not always going to get it right, but we'll try.
500?
500? So if there's this desire to raise the fine, then I think individual older people could
Would sponsor.
introduce and sponsor that. Anything else on the fireworks issue?
Thank you.
If not, we'll move on to resolution to provide services as a wireless 911 public safety answering point. And I'll let both chiefs have a brief period, 5 minutes or so, to fill us in on what their objections or reasons for wanting it are.
He's opposed, so he can go first.
Okay. And in fairness, Chief Pooler wasn't here last meeting, so we'll give you an opportunity to start.
Sure. So you've all received the white paper. I know it's a very complicated issue, so if you have any questions tonight, please feel free to ask. I'll start by saying, had this idea been floated a few years ago, I definitely would have been in favor for it, because there are tangible benefits to our citizens. By eliminating the delay between the Milwaukee County dispatcher answering the phone and then transferring it to West Allis, you're going to get cops and firefighters and paramedics to doors faster. However, this year, a lot has changed in the makeup of 911 in the county. What's brand new this year is the governor's shared revenue bill with the innovation fund. So any two governmental agencies that come together to eliminate duplicity throughout government are eligible to get money from the state that they never were before in the tunes of millions of dollars. So that is a great opportunity that we need to take a look at as a city. A second thing that has changed, the state has asked every county in the state to designate a primary PSAP. PSAP is a public safety answering point, where the 911 calls come into. Every county in the state, except for Milwaukee County, in the past has designated a PSAP, and that PSAP is eligible for millions of dollars of state aid. The 75-cent fee, I think it is, on your cell phone bill, that goes to fund that gets redistributed to 911 centers throughout the state. Milwaukee County has the most citizens, we have the most cell phones, we pay the most 75-cent fees throughout the state, but yet we've never been able to benefit from that because we never designated a primary PSAP. That changed last month when the ICC, all the mayors and city administrators, city managers in the county selected Bayside Communication as the primary PSAP. That means Bayside is now eligible for millions of dollars of state aid with the goal of streamlining the 911 service. On top of that, City of Milwaukee has the largest existing 911 center in the state. They are going through a huge personnel and technological upgrade, and they are willing to take or have conversations with any other municipality in the county about consolidating under one roof. So there's 3 new opportunities out there that could save the city millions of dollars a year. So by changing this, and I'm not here to push consolidation. I'm saying I've worked here for 21 years now. Some of you have been here a lot longer than I have. Every year the budget is tough. Every year we're asked to do more with less and to look for ways to streamline our operations and eliminate redundancies. And now we've got 3 dispatch centers with City of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, and Bayside that all have millions of dollars in infrastructure that we either have or have to replace in the coming years. So I'm just saying that you guys, as a body, need to make that decision. I guess that's why I wanted to pump the brakes on all this. I'm not here today to say we need to consolidate. I'm saying we need to have conversations. This change, while it would save time on the front end, is going to increase the workload for a center that's already overworked and in a geographically small footprint that has no room to expand. If you look at Bayside, who already does their own cellular 911, they staff more and they take more calls than we do. even though they have less people. So it's logical to me that if we make this change, we're going to be back here asking for more dispatchers and more technology in the future. So if you look at the city's capital budget, 2026 is when the police have a $1.2 million radio upgrade coming that we wouldn't need if we were to consolidate. So to me, that's the drop dead, that's the deadline, that's the line in the sand, right, to make a decision before the 2026 capital plan gets introduced. So I would propose pushing off this small change and looking at the next year and a half with consolidating with one of those other centers. And if you want to, great. If you don't, then no harm, no foul. We make the change, and we save those seconds on the front end with the change in dispatch technology.
Mr. President,
Alderman Weigel.
this is a good time for questions.
Sure.
So Milwaukee County has a PSAP,
Correct.
and all those 75 cent fees are going to Bayside.
Correct.
So how does that come to us then? We gotta
Because
throw in with Bayside.
we, in theory, that's the option on the table, is that we could pursue consolidation with them because they are getting state money that is earmarked for consolidating dispatch centers and improving technology in the 911 center.
Okay, and the ICC made this decision because Bayside lobbied very hard for them. No one else was interested in being the PSAP.
Yeah, so the ICC being, the top elected officials from all the municipalities, they're not dispatch subject matter experts. So they put together a subcommittee of police, fire, and IT professionals in the county and said, you guys do all the research and come up with a recommendation for us. So I was on that committee selected by our mayor and the mayor of Wauwatosa. So we started by soliciting every PSAP in the county. So we have 12 PSAPs in the county. So 12 911 centers that all have the same technology in place and all do the same job. And asked which ones are interested. And only 3 were interested: Milwaukee County, City of Milwaukee, and Bayside. Everybody else said, no, we're not interested in being the primary PSAP. So we started from there. The state has a large list of requirements for PSAPs. So we went through it and assured that all 3 meet those requirements, and they did. And then we kind of went down a pro and con list of all 3 of them, listened to the presentations. End of the day, we did not make a recommendation because we couldn't come to a consensus, but we had representatives on that committee from Milwaukee County, from City of Milwaukee, and from Bayside. So they were all going to vote for their own centers no matter what. So we couldn't come to consensus, but we did grade it based on criteria. Bayside had the most points, most favorable points of all 3 centers. We gave that information to the ICC. The other kind of tricky thing is Bayside dispatches for all 7 communities in the North Shore. So all 7 of those mayors and village managers voted for Bayside. So they already had the deck stacked in their favor.
I'll tell you honestly, in my heart, I'd like it that when the 911 call is answered, placed in West Dallas, that the person primary responsibility is the city of West Dallas, and it's familiar. And I understand the technology is going to come up on the screen and tell whether it's North 62nd or South 62nd, whatever street. But in my heart, I like the idea that the person answering the call doesn't necessarily live in West Dallas, but only has 11 square miles to work.
There's value there for sure.
Any other questions for Chief Pooler?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Haas.
Yeah, and Mason, again, currently, we were talking about Bayside, but currently it's the county that's handling our cellular 911 calls.
Yeah, so 90% of our 911 calls coming via cell. So those 90% start at Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management already. And they're building a brand new state-of-the-art center on the county grounds right now. They got that approved in the budget. So they're building that center to be scalable, because right now they don't do any primary dispatching. They answer, and then they transfer to every municipality that they dispatch for, or that they answer for, I should say. But they're building their center to be scalable. So as opportunities for consolidation present themselves, they'll have the footprint needed to add more dispatch councils, more personnel.
President,
Alderman Stefanski.
when it goes to that center, how many seconds do we lose by it not going up ours?
That's a good question. I don't think we've got concrete data on there. Probably in 30 to 60 seconds, I think, is the general
We
understanding.
sampled calls on the police side, and I'll point out that when we asked Milwaukee County for the data on 4 specific calls, how long they had them, their answer as a good partner was for us to file an open records request. So we did get the information through an open records request. So if the county would be under consideration to dispatch for us, that would be a treat to, get open records requests to get information from them. So it's generally between 30 seconds up to well over a minute, depending on the type of call.
That's why I said in the front end, if this had been years ago and these other opportunities hadn't been there to consolidate, I would have been all for this years and years ago. It makes no sense to me for those calls to be answered somewhere else and then transferred. But now that we know there are 3 other viable options out there, I think it's at least worth the conversation.
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Vitale.
what really is being cost the city annually for being connected with the county? I mean, there's gotta be some cost, right?
0.
Zero?
Yep. We don't pay them anything. There's no guarantee, like if we were to have them do all of our dispatching rather than just transfer that call, I'm sure they would want a dollar amount for that. Nobody's had those talks to figure out what that dollar amount would be, but I'm fairly certain it'd be less than what we pay right now for dispatch.
Sure.
Alderwoman Reinke.
If we go this route, how many additional staff would we need to monitor it or to take care of it?
If we make the change as proposed by the police,
Yes.
that's a question for Chief Mitchell.
Oh, I think you can answer it. You put it in your paper. Go ahead.
The best we could do would be to look at other centers that do something similar.
Yes.
So Bayside is the example I keep going back to because they made this change back in the 1990s. So even though they answer less calls, they staff more people. So I would say that we would probably need a couple more bodies per day than we do right now to keep up with that workload. Just my best guess.
And I'll tell you, having done the research and not guessing, that I 100% disagree with that statement. One of the things in the fire department white paper is that we should not, quote, rush into this. We don't rush into anything in the police department. If you're on the capital committee or if you pay attention to the annual budgeting process whatsoever, we do white papers for pretty much everything. We've done it for my entire tenure as chief. When I came here, I said, we're not going to spend government money unless we research it and you convince me that it's the right thing to do. So we're the king of the white paper. We do white papers on everything. We don't rush into anything. 2018 is the earliest email I can find where I am talking with a chief of a suburban community, trying to get more information on receiving the 911 calls. If you recall at the last council meeting on this on August 1st, I said that we're a late adopter of technology. We do that intentionally so that other people can sort things out for us. Franklin and Oak Creek have been at this for years. They don't have any issues with this whatsoever. So, you know, his paper has a lot of data in it. At the end of the day, this really isn't about data, it's about logic. Some of his data is horribly incorrect. You know, one of the things he points out is that the county will give us 3,445 extra calls a year. 3,445 extra calls a year, okay? So he says in his paper that's a 30% increase in the workload. It's a 30% increase in a sliver of the workload. 911 is about 12% of what the center does. That's it. So the center takes hundreds, like 138,000 calls a year. So an increase of 3,000 calls a year is not a 30% increase in our workload. If you do the math, it's a 2.4% increase. So if you read his paper, and he talks about you're going to need millions of dollars more, you're going to need more people. Do you know what? So I always like math. I always get attracted to the numbers, and I look at the numbers. So I'm going to give you some numbers here. Do you know what 3,445 is divided by 365? 9. Yeah, it's 9 extra calls a day. So each person working in the room will have to use 1 extra call a day. And in his paper, with his logic, to staff up to handle that 1 extra call a day per person, we will have to go, he doesn't even know how many dispatch consoles we have. He writes that we have 4 dispatch consoles. We have 5. We've had 5 for years. So he opines that we would have to be like Bayside and we would have to have 12. And it would cost 2-point-something million, which I was happy to see it at 2-point-something million because his first estimate was 6 million. So essentially we would need to go from 5 dispatch consoles up to 12 we'd have to get 7 additional dispatch councils for 9 extra calls a day. It's not a 30% increase in our workload. It is about a 2.4% increase in our workload. Now, look at how we got here in the police department. It's me going into the dispatch center for years, repeatedly, day in and day out. How you doing today? What's going on in here? Me understanding the dispatch center, which is probably pretty important because I run the dispatch center. They report to me. They don't report to him. When I go in the dispatch center and I ask the last time they saw the fire chief, yeah, they really don't know. So he's opined in a paper and made a ton of assumptions that you just can't make if you know the dispatch center. It just, the data doesn't add up. So we'll talk about, we have 3 dispatchers on most of our shifts. So look at it this way, about 1 dispatcher for every 20,000 people. So he would tell you that the county is the gold standard. Well, the county has dispatching 911 responsibilities for about 215,000 people if you do the math. Right now, 77% of this county gets 911 calls directly in their dispatch center. All we want to do is join the 77% and give our citizens better service. That's all we're looking to do. So the county, serving 215,000 people, if you do the math, if they need 1 dispatcher for every 20,000 like we have, they need 10 point something dispatchers per shift. They're nowhere near that. So if we're understaffed, the county is understaffed. The only one that's overstaffed is Bayside. And if you want to spend money like the North Shore, I am fully in favor. Where do I sign up? When do we get to do that? That is not a good comparison for the city of West Allis. So the benefits for the citizens right now, as it exists right now, if your loved one is having a heart attack and you call 911, you are going to get transferred, you're going to get Milwaukee County for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, 90 seconds, however long they decide to take with it. Then you're going to get us. So let's say you're watching your loved one have a heart attack. Do you know what you're going to get in the first couple of seconds on the call with us? Hi, what are you calling about? Where are you? We're going to repeat all the same calls that Milwaukee County did because we don't know the answers to it. So we are wasting time to get you help. I was going to bring calls here for you today, but I didn't want to play them on TV because these are actual people. But we have calls in our center where people are just out of their mind. Why are you asking me that? You already asked me that. Just send me help. And that's really, at the end of the day, is all we're looking to do. So I suspected on August 1st, this is about countywide dispatch. His white paper confirms it. He spent more time talking about countywide dispatch than this issue. So tonight is not about countywide dispatch at all, at all. If countywide dispatch is something you decide you want to do and you want to work towards that goal, that's something for you to decide. It would require a lot of studying, a lot of research. But the reality is, if you vote yes today for $7,100 in grant funding, and then $286 additional dollars per month, we can deliver excellent service to the citizens of this city. So now he writes in the paper that we're going to be overwhelmed by these 9 extra calls a day. So let's look at a crash. A crash would be probably the most common thing that would result in a lot of calls to a dispatch center. So under the current system, in their first, on August 1st, they said the county only gives us 1 call. Now their white paper clarified it because they checked with the county, and even though the county advertised that in their PSAP grant, they don't just give us 1 call. I use the example of a broad daylight shooting on 103rd and Greenfield. Broad daylight. How many calls did the county get on that? 10. How many did they send to us? In this broad daylight shooting, 1 man getting out, 103rd and Greenfield, shooting another man, then getting in his car, driving in the wrong lane of traffic, getting in crashes over a series of streets. 10 calls. Of the 10 calls, how many did they send to West Allis? 7. Handled it just fine. You're probably not going to get much more of a complicated fact set than that. If you do get a complicated fact set, you get an active shooter in a high school, if you vote yes for this change, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna send help to the high school immediately. And let's say that we get 30 calls. And let's say that once a year, we can't answer call 20th through 28 in a real super quick manner. Do you know what we're already doing by that time? Responding to the event. Under the current setup, we are not responding to that event. All you have to do is look at the fire department annual report. They have graphs in there. If you go to the PFC meetings, they report on time 12 different metrics where they measure time. And they say it's really important for us to get to things fast. But now that we want to do this, now it's not as important to get to things fast. 12 different things in their monthly report that they use time as a metric to measure success. We want to help them get to things faster. In their annual report every year, this is from the American Heart Association, it talks about if you have a heart event and you need a defibrillator to restart your heart. Do you know that every minute that you get delayed to get a defibrillator, your chances of survival decrease by 10%? Every year it's in their annual report. So if we can shorten that up by a minute, right there you have increased the survival rate of citizens in our city by 10%. It's in their annual report, not mine. So this is very well thought out by us, very well researched. We do not need additional people. We do not need additional IT support. We do not need additional money. This is not about combined dispatch. This is about one issue. Do you want to spend $7,000 in grant funding and $286 a month to get calls faster? That's all it's about.
Mr. President?
Alderwoman Keene.
I have just two questions. I understand that one of them was the original cost was $621, but then getting rid of technology.
Yeah.
What is the technology?
Redundant phone lines and a T1 line
Okay.
that are redundant.
Okay, and then I don't know if I missed in the white paper. Would the option to text 911 still be available?
We will not have that for a few years until we upgrade our dispatch center. When you ask Milwaukee County how many text to 911 calls they get, 153 in a year. When you ask them how many of those go to West Dallas, they don't have that data. So 153 in a year in the 215,000 people that they support, plus the freeway. So the question is, do you want to get to our 1,000 plus 911 calls a month faster at the expense of the 3 people that might text 911? My answer is yes.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Grisham.
Thank you, Dana, for asking that question, because mine falls back on the text calls as well. And I know the 153 doesn't seem like a large number compared to the data you gave.
Yep.
However, in those instances where somebody would need text versus being able to make an actual call, say in the instance of a rape or a home invasion or something like that, we need to be able to provide 100% service. So what would we be looking at? You said 3 years prior to
No,
it?
it's
Or is that something?
Probably
that-
about 2 years.
Okay.
And you could upgrade that part of the dispatch center before you upgrade the rest of the dispatch center. And there would be costs associated with that.
And truth be told, as my vote would be on something like that, I would like to see that we encompass
Yep.
all of that opportunity. But I'd like to know what the numbers were, because I think, speaking as myself and not full council, I think we need to be up and running 100.
Yep.
And 3 years is too long, 2 years is too long.
I think the state deadline is 2029, and we would, under no scenario, take that long.
Right,
There's not a lot of communities that have it so far.
okay, thank you.
Are there any?
Mr. President. Yeah, thank you. Certainly, I appreciate the fire department's idea of government, intergovernmental cooperation. That's something we've been pushing on all of our department heads, and we as a council, I know, want to work with other municipalities as much as possible. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't trust the county one bit. The Oak Leaf Trail by my house has been closed for 2 years because of disrepair, and they're not going to open it again for another 2 years. That's their plan. The parkways are crumbling. The parkway roads are all falling apart in our city in particular, but somehow Wauwatosa's gets theirs repaved, but not us. The county jail is understaffed, and that's in the media. The sheriff's department can't patrol the freeways. They need the state patrol to assist them. They used to have a hospital. And they used to provide mental health care. You were talking about an entity that, despite increased taxes in the form of a wheel tax and now a new sales tax that they're going to be getting, continues to do less and less and less, and what they do, they do poorly. Anything under county auspices is just a horrible idea. If we can get out of it and provide better services, it's best to go with the police idea.
Any other comments or questions for the chiefs?
Mr. President.
Chief Hoover.
So I would agree with 90% of what you say about the county. The one example I will say that they do well is emergency services, and the radio system is a prime example. 50 years ago, we all had our own little radio systems, and now we're all under one county radio system that run by Milwaukee County. We have a governance board where police and fire from every municipality are represented, and that radio system works flawlessly. It's one of the best radio systems in the country. And I would envision, once again, this isn't a conversation right now about consolidated dispatch. This is, let's not close the door on consolidated dispatch just yet. If Milwaukee County were to ever be considered as the main 911 hub for our citizens or other municipalities, there would be some sort of governance structure there to make sure they are meeting the needs of you and our citizens. I don't want to say that the county does bad at parks, that means they're going to be a bad dispatcher. That's not the case. But ultimately, like Chief Mitchell said, this is not a conversation today about consolidated dispatch. This is about, do we take our own 911 calls from cell phones or not? It's been the current way since the beginning of time, since the 1980s when cell phones first came out. It's been working relatively okay, except for, I would agree, the 30 to 60 second delay is not ideal. But now, for the first time ever, there are other options on the table for dispatch. Why put another barrier in the way? I would say pump brakes, take some time, put together a group to talk about what dispatch could look like. If not, this is your city. I will do whatever you guys want. I just wanted to make sure you were aware that there are options out there.
Mr. President, by us taking the 911 calls now wouldn't take off the table future potential for consolidation, correct?
It has nothing to do
No.
with it.
Okay.
Well, there's the technological change in having to touch all the cell phone towers to reconfigure them to point to RC. So we'd be undoing the change that we're doing here. So there would be a small expense, but some manpower there.
Any other questions for either of the chiefs? If not, this item is on the consent agenda with a recommendation for approval.
And approval of the police idea.
Yes.
Horses. Yeah. I knew that. I just wanted to make sure we all knew that.
Thanks.
Anything further to come before the committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.